If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
In the market for new or used guns, look no further than Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun. Whether you want to buy, sell, or trade, we got you covered. While you're here, check out our large selection of jewelry. We offer gold, silver, diamond, and beautiful estate jewelry. Looking for electronics? We have almost anything you can think of. We always carry new and used guns, so come here first and shop with a local business you can trust. Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun, serving you for over 25 years. 443-1668, 2552 Sunset Avenue, Rocky Mount.
Welcome to the K-Files this morning. Lindell, glad to have you.
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing?
My partner in crime.
I got here instead of at 7:59 today. I got here a little early.
I couldn't believe it. He walked in at 7:45.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're my sidekick or I'm your sidekick. I haven't figured it out yet.
I'm your sidekick because I don't get paid.
Oh, okay. Well, Lindell does this because he has a passion for cold cases, a passion to solve crimes that are unsolved, and I think that's a great thing.
Just to let folks know where we're going today, General Gordon Bray will be here in a little while to talk about. He's going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about progress with. We're going to talk about progress with the Team Cold Case, and then we're going to talk about what he calls the Rocky Mount Corridor.
Okay. We'll shut that off for now.
Sure. Okay, and then so then in the third segment, we're going to have a special video with the U.S. Attorney. I'm going to talk about a little bit about that in a minute, but I want people to see this video. There he is. He was at the train station last week to talk about what they've done in Eastern North Carolina in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then I wanted to. We've been doing this 2 months, 3 months. Are we going into 3 months?
Seems like it's 3 months.
And I haven't really plugged my employer that much so far. I mean, we mention all the time that
We'll go right ahead.
But I thought this would be a good week to talk about it because the things just fell together for this week's newspaper.
Right.
That should have a lot of stuff that folks would be interested in and let them see. So the first thing, it ties back into there's the press conference that we'll be showing a very important clip of later on in the show. And of course, that is U.S. Attorney was here last week to talk about 1,000 people that have been arrested.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're not quite ready for that
Sure.
yet.
No, that's, I want her to see that. And then, That's weird. Okay, so then the next thing that I wanted people to see is that okay, there we go. So we're, like I said, we're going to talk about, well, I haven't really told people, but we are going to talk about, is it Rex Keel or Lynn Keel? Yeah,
Rex
okay.
Lynn Keel.
So we're gonna talk about this gentleman in a minute and what's going on with his case. And I wanted people to see,
I don't know why it's doing that.
yeah, that's weird. Okay, so there he is with his wife. And
His second wife.
His second wife, yeah. When we'll get into, the first wife.
Mm-hmm.
And, like we've been discussing all week, we're going to put some effort into having a special episode on Mr.
Yes.
Keel coming up.
We're working on that right now, so you'll be interested. We'll let you know in advance when we're going to have it.
So here's the plug I wanted people to see, that we just showed that picture of the front page of the paper this week. You'll see up here it says ransomware attack. And
Yes.
we also, I think you've been talking a little bit about this today, hotel contractor indicted in another state, so I'll have some information on that. But one thing that the enterprise can do that other publications can't do, and I make sure of this, right? Is everybody last week had a story about the U.S. attorney coming to town, right? We've all, everybody's had that story. But one thing that the enterprise has done that you won't see anywhere else is here's a list of all 36 people that he talked about, and that we'll see the segment later, and a rundown of every bit of that, so you won't get that kind of in-depth coverage other places. It's just not possible because of space limitations or whatever. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying I just know what I can do.
Well, it sounds like you've had a full paper this week.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So and going back to Keel, right? I can't think of every time I hear that it's I was in the Navy for a few years, so it's a nautical term, and every time I just think about keel haul or whatever, which they might do to him at some point. But there has been a lot of action in his case this year.
And it's time for him to go to court.
Yeah, he's getting closer.
Case to come to trial, but with COVID, it's been put off, I believe.
Yeah, COVID is put off everything.
It's not going to be right now. It probably will be, it looks like the first of the year.
Yeah, so
it is coming up.
Right,
and we do need to talk about it.
Sure, and to give people who may not be familiar with that, his wife went missing. His second wife went missing in March of 2019. And she was missing for a few days, I think over the weekend, probably about 4 days altogether.
And he was telling the cops, that law enforcement, that she left with somebody and I haven't seen her.
Right, and he also took his child to church on that Sunday, and was putting on a good face about where she was. Her body was found in Edgecombe County, and then not long after that, he's arrested for her murder. And so the actions that have been going on throughout the COVID pandemic and all that stuff is one, they've had a Rule 24 hearing. A Rule 24 hearing in North Carolina is a required hearing by law where the state tells the court whether or not it's going to seek the death penalty, right? So in North Carolina, Mr. Keel is charged with first-degree murder.
You pulled the records the other day.
Yeah, I went down to the courthouse and spent a long time. Well, yeah, so in North Carolina, you either got life in prison or death. That's the only two possible punishments under law for first-degree murder. So he's charged with first-degree murder. If they pursue that, if it doesn't change to second-degree murder or what have you, if it sticks with first-degree murder, the only two possible punishments for that is life in prison or death. Well, the state has said that they are not going to seek the death penalty in this case, which they could have. I mean,
that leaves you to go,
I mean, he almost decapitated her with the stabbing injuries to her neck. So I mean,
We're going to have a question. We're going to have to ask the DA.
That oftentimes,
and we can do that.
there's two sides to that, and that is that you feel like you want justice if he's guilty of this. You really want justice for the case, but then another part of it is if it's a capital case, then he automatically gets two lawyers, two very expensive lawyers that we pay for, right? Because especially in this, we'll get to this in a minute, but Mr. Keel is claimed to be indigent.
Right.
Even though he was a very successful businessman who traveled all over the world, he's claimed to be indigent. So the taxpayers will pay for footing the bill for that.
Right.
And that could run up, I mean, I've seen some of these capital cases run up millions of dollars that taxpayers have to pay for.
Right.
So, it's a sticky situation either way, one way or the other. Okay, so then so then there's that. So he's gonna the only punishment that he can have is life in prison. So that's what we're looking at if he's convicted.
Okay, so you learned something this morning.
Right.
We've been searching. We found that the DA is not going to seek the death penalty in the Lynn Keel case.
Right.
So we already know that. Okay.
So he's got a court-appointed attorney from Greenville.
Right.
And Mr. Gefferon, if I pronounced his name right. And I don't know, he won't take my phone calls.
And they have moved the case to Greenville.
To Greenville, and pushed it off all the way till sometime next year.
Yeah.
Possibly December, but probably
like
next year.
February or something, I believe.
And you got to give the attorney credit, because like in his motion, he said that we need to move the case out because if a jury has to deliberate during this period, then they take a danger of coronavirus, and then they might blame that on Mr. Keel.
Right.
So then it would be detriment to his client. So I mean, that's pretty creative.
He come up with a good one on that.
Yeah, he's very. I mean,
but you know what? These attorneys and prosecutors, they are creative.
Yeah, well, I mean, the file is an inch and a half thick already, and they haven't even started. So it's one of the larger files that I've seen at this stage in the process, right?
Wow.
So the other thing that Mr. Gefferon, he filed a motion asking the judge to prevent the jury from learning that he's being paid by the state, that Mr. Keel is indigent, because he says that if the jury finds out that he's being represented by the state, then or being paid for by the state, then they might not like that either.
Now that is ridiculous, because you know what? 90% of them are state or court-appointed attorneys.
Yeah, especially at that point, because no matter how much money you have going into it, once you end up in the prison system, or actually in the jail system, although Mr. Keel is being kept up in Raleigh for his own safety, but
that was done immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, Sheriff Stone took him immediately, got him out of here, because
your money can run out really quickly.
Yes.
Really quickly. So anyway, so then like one of the other things that we saw is he filed a motion that they took over 200 pictures of the crime scene and of her body at the crime scene and at autopsy.
Right.
And he wants a hearing prior to the trial so they can go through all 200 of these pictures with the judge and determine which ones the jury will get to see and which ones of them they won't. And I mean, he says that it's too inflammatory, for the jury might pull on their emotions. I mean, that's a reasonable request, because some of these pictures are, pretty gruesome. And, so the chess game has just begun in the case, really. So he's made a lot of early moves, and, it'll be up to the state to decide where to go from there.
And this is exactly, people, I hear this all the time, and this show has educated. I've heard from so many people, I didn't know that. Well, this is what this show is designed for, to make you understand. People say all the time, why in the world did it take 3 years to try this case? Or why did it take 2 years to try this case? I don't understand why it takes so long.
Right.
Well, Lindell just told you why it took so long. strategy.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
takes a while for attorneys to develop their strategy
And I want to say this
to
too.
defend their client.
Defense attorneys, everybody hates defense attorneys until their kid gets arrested for
That's
something.
right.
You know,
That's right.
in America, I mean, everybody deserves the best possible legal defense.
Yes.
You know, so
And
I know-
you know, I have to commend these attorneys because they're actors.
Sure.
They're good at what they do.
oh yeah, on both
They're good
sides.
actors.
And when I, you know, because most defense, a large majority of defense attorneys started out as prosecutors.
Yeah.
So, but when I first started covering this stuff 25 years ago, down in the Wilmington area, I would come home with these stories about, you know, little kids being killed and you know, just the worst stuff that you could imagine. And my wife would always just be like, "Oh, I can't believe so-and-so would represent this person or that person," and you know, and you know, I would tell her that was the line that I always used with her would be like, you know, "Honey, wait until one of our kids get arrested for
Right,
something, then
right.
you know."
Heaven
Fortunately,
forbid,
that hadn't happened yet, but you know, fingers
Are you
crossed.
waiting for it?
Yeah, but now our interest, what we're going to start looking at over the next few weeks is this is a current case going through the court system, right? This show is not really about current cases making its way through the court system.
Right.
But what makes this case interesting to us
Right.
is the fact that several years earlier, Mr. Keel's first wife wound up dead.
That's right.
And he says she fell down a flight of stairs, and there were questions then about it, but there's definitely questions about it now.
But you found in the paperwork that the attorney is asking that not be brought up
Absolutely.
in this case.
Exactly, Sandra. So he doesn't want the jury to know about that, and so that is, I think that's extremely important, and that's important to the to us. So we're gonna look at we're gonna take a special episode coming up to look at Mr. Keel's life, his first marriage, and you know, maybe what happened there, and then his second marriage.
And I want to backtrack on something I just said. I said sometimes it takes a while for attorneys to develop their strategies. Well, it also, I did not add in there, takes a while for the prosecution
Yeah, that's
to
right.
develop their case as well. It's a two-sided thing, and it's just...
Yeah, because
it just
prosecutors ask for
takes-
delays too. I mean,
Exactly. So it's a two-sided coin, and they work together with each other to you know, develop the date that they're going to finally
Spend time
come
at
out
the
with
golf
this-
course
this
together. I mean,
thing. And,
whatever.
You know, one of the best cases I've ever seen of an attorney doing a great acting job was Tommy Moore. Tommy Moore's a great attorney. I recommend him. I really do. He he was the defense attorney for Andre Edwards. Remember
Okay.
Andre Edwards?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The lady that was murdered.
Yeah, with the tire
Her
iron.
baby was thrown in the sun, in the field, and they were seeking the death penalty on him. And Tommy Moore was able to save his client from the death penalty.
Good for him.
By rubbing his head. This poor child was done
Good for him.
that to when he
Bad
was
for everybody
young.
else, but
Oh, it
good for him.
is, but I mean, he did his job.
Right,
He did
absolutely.
his job well.
Absolutely.
And so, anyway, we got to go to break. We're late, and we'll be right back with more of the K-Files.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
In the market for new or used guns, look no further than Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun. Whether you want to buy, sell, or trade, we got you covered. While you're here, check out our large selection of jewelry. We offer gold, silver, diamond, and beautiful estate jewelry. Looking for electronics? We have almost anything you can think of. We always carry new and used guns, so come here first and shop with a local business you can trust. Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun, serving you for over 25 years. 443-1668, 2552 Sunset Avenue, Rocky Mount.
Good morning.
Hello,
Welcome
folks.
back to the K Files.
I just got off
John K.
the, sure, the general was supposed to be here this morning. I just got off the phone with him. He said that he's under the weather, so we will go.
We will continue on.
That's right.
Our conversation.
Live television, you gotta love it.
Yeah, gotta love it. Okay.
Just like Jeff Sherrard called out on us a few weeks ago. Of course, now he had a
He
really
was
good,
busy. He was
he had a
running
really
to
good
the-
excuse. He was in the middle of two murders.
He had the
two murders in one day.
Yeah,
Sure.
he did. So, and by the way, I want to just say, you know, Sheriff Stone has a great staff, and you know, I just Jeff Sherrod is just a great I think he's a lieutenant now.
Yeah.
I don't ever know what rank they are because they move up so fast.
Right.
But anyway, he's a great investigator.
And-
He is in investigations, and he's a great investigator. He's been a great cop the whole time. You know, I knew Jeff when he was coming up. He played ball with my husband, and he always a nice kid, and then wanted to be a cop.
Sure.
So he's been at Sheriff's Department quite a long time and very dedicated. He's one that, Sheriff Stone said he's one that, you know, will come to a call and they're like, what are you doing here? You're off. Well, I wanted to help. So he'll come, you know, even
Right.
though he's not on duty.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You plug Jeff Sherrard.
I love to.
All right.
Oh, be quiet.
We've got about, I don't know, what, 10 or 15 minutes here?
Yes.
I think this would be a good time for us to kind of unpack everything so
Yes.
far, to let folks know, and you know, that we get new viewers every week, so some people don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I'll just take a moment to talk about myself.
Okay.
'Cause
Don't
a lot-
talk about yourself. You talk about yourself enough.
I never talk about myself.
No, I'm kidding.
Enough, you know,
We do have a call, though, from the general.
well, okay.
Good morning.
Hey, General.
Hey, good morning. Just to make clear, I didn't want to be coughing on television. You guys are doing the right thing to keep the distancing. But excuse me. But the challenge is that in this environment, to be coughing on your television show would not be sending the right signal.
No.
Yeah, you guys had, you guys have as always doing a great show and great discussion.
Thank
One
you.
of the things that you didn't talk about was ordinarily, the person that's a court-appointed defense attorney is not generally the most experienced. But when they want somebody for a capital case, he has a little more capability, especially when they get to the two.
Right.
Right.
So they are a little better. And remember, our criminal justice system is designed so that no innocent person goes to jail. That's the hard part. And I saw your face, Linda, when you always believe, we always believe that the person that goes to court is guilty. Most of us do. And so he's already guilty because we know he got enough evidence to at least start the case. You know,
Well, you know, General, a charge is not a charge of a crime is not evidence of a crime.
That's exactly right.
and I have covered quite a few court cases where the defendant ended up being found not guilty. So,
yeah.
this particular case, there's a lot of evidence in this particular
One of the
case.
cases is one where everybody in the world is the O.J. Simpson case. I mean, everybody in the world says he's guilty.
Which one is
They all
that?
say he's guilty.
Which one is
But
that?
they introduced enough doubt that the jury came back with something else. So when you have these cases, you know, it's a very tough thing for us as civilians, and even worse if you're the family, to to see somebody that you, once they got somebody to watch him, quote unquote, get off. And so
What they do is plant enough doubt that it's not beyond a reasonable doubt,
that's exactly
which is
right.
what they
That's
keep
right.
on saying to the jury. It's gotta be beyond a reasonable doubt. And then they, so not able to do it.
Yeah, the other thing that you saw is that you have a case where a person is decapitated. And so the court, the death is just absolutely brutal, and most of us would say that human being should not be on this earth anymore.
Right.
That's what we start to believe. That person should disappear. The challenge, though, is that when you have a jury that goes inside, if they know that when they come up with a guilty verdict, if you've got one person on there that actually doesn't believe in death, they won't even go for it because they know that's the only outcome. But so you got the tiering that you brought up very clearly, Lindell. The tiering of the punishment is going to be the outcome, and then you got the guilty verdict. So you start asking yourself, where can I take this case to? Some of them, you got enough information, enough evidence, and then, oh, by the way, depending upon which part of the country, you got enough folks who are willing to make that hard call to say, I'm going to send this person to their death.
Right.
So you got all that you got to put together.
Right. Okay, well, we thank you for calling in this morning,
Yes,
General.
please come back we'll set up a schedule for when you not coughing, because I wanted to talk about progress with the case with the
I went to the docs yesterday because the reason we were going to go for this time period is because we're looking at when my knee surgery is going to take place. Well, based upon talks between my dentist and my surgeon, it looks like now I'll be put off longer before I get the legs done. Yeah, that's okay. We'll swallow that out.
Your poor knees.
Yeah, I've got more time. Yeah, 2 knees. So we got more time, and we'll make it work.
Okay.
Appreciate it, General.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Make it happen. All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys.
Yep.
Keep hammering away.
We will. Thank you.
Yeah, I want the General to come back on and talk about it, because we've made a lot of progress in organizing.
Yes,
our
and
umbrella.
he will. He'll come back and talk about.
Right.
Now, let's take a few moments to talk about that, Lindell. We have $15,000 in our kitty.
Right.
It is available to you if you call in a tip up to $15,000, and that's what the board is for.
Right.
They get together and talk to law enforcement and say, how much was this tip worth to the case?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how we come up with what you will be paid. And it doesn't have to be upon conviction. Don't forget that. Doesn't have to be. If you know any information, it is anonymous, people. It is anonymous. And we have had people call. We have had success. 406-6736. You see it. There's a hotline number. But we have had success with someone calling in a tip. So please do so, and let's help.
Right.
I want to mark some cases.
Right,
off.
and we can circle this back around to what I was saying about when I first started. When I first started my reporting career almost 20 years ago, I got involved with a Crime Stoppers program down at the beach, and that's where the idea for some of this comes from, because it was a very successful program. And one thing that needs to work, folks, is the public has to be involved. You know, cops can't, like the General always talks about the rule of law, right? Cops can't solve cases in a vacuum. You know, we've got that case that we've talked about on the air before over in Edgecombe County earlier this year. You know, dozens of people at a party. Of course, we know now that a lot of it's gang related, but dozens of people at a party,
Right.
2 folks get killed, nobody saw anything.
Right.
You know, so police can't solve, and you know, and I think because of shows that have been on TV and stuff, everybody seems to think that it's we live in a CSI world where DNA solves everything, you know, and you know, I mean,
Crimes are solved in a
Right.
day.
yeah, or in 47
few
minutes in
hours.
commercials. But I mean, what really solves cases, even with DNA, is hard detective work.
Yes.
Knocking on doors, getting out, talking to people, canvassing the neighborhoods, finding eyewitnesses.
Right.
And in today's world, you know, I mean, it's getting harder and harder for them to do that.
Right.
So that's what we're doing here. That is our whole purpose
Right.
of this show, is to facilitate the public coming to law enforcement.
Right.
So, you know, the people who know things, you know, like we had a call off the in between on a commercial break a few weeks ago. The woman was asking, does it matter how old the case is? And I mean, no,
That's
it doesn't.
right.
That's what we're here for. I
Does
don't,
not.
you know,
That's what we're talking about, is cold
Right.
cases.
The longest running case that we have right now is back in the 70s. A little kid got off the wrong stop and got murdered. We'll be talking about that
We're going to
in the next
bring
few
in
weeks. Right.
one of the investigators.
He was an investigator, went on to be the police chief here in several cities here in North Carolina. So
Right.
he's a great guy, and he's going to talk about it. And you know, that case is solvable. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter how long ago.
That case should be solved.
Some of the best success that I had in this business was a murder that, by the time that I started writing about it, was 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And information that I had found and included in news articles led a witness to come forward to talk to authorities.
Mm-hmm.
So that case ended up in court with a first-degree murder conviction. So I mean, it is possible. We're not spinning our wheels. Although I'll say it's not easy. Right. I mean, this
Nobody said
is
it was easy.
This is not something that I got into thinking, oh well, you know, there's going to be something solved tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, nothing
Right.
that's worth doing is easy, right?
Right.
And so we could go a long time without success, but there's different levels of success. There's also public awareness. Just the idea that we're
That's
doing
right.
this generates more awareness in the community and all that. And there's also a lot of times these cases can move forward without an immediate result. You know, things that we're doing today might matter 10 years from now.
Right.
And we won't even know. You know, I mean, I've worked at several different newspapers in eastern North Carolina, and stories that I wrote about, you know, stuff that I did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'm just now hearing about it now. I had a unidentified body that I wrote a lot about 10 years ago, and they just figured out who she was last year. You know, so that's what it's all about. We have to continue to do this work so that folks can be encouraged to call law enforcement. And the money's a part of it. I mean, you know, you want some Christmas money, call on your cousin because you know what he did, and tell him, and we'll be more than happy to hand some money out. So, I mean, you know, that's what the show is about. That's what Teen Cold Case is about. So just the structure of it, the General will cover it, you know, in detail when he's able to be here. But this Teen Cold Case thing exists as more or less like an umbrella, a nonprofit umbrella. And underneath that nonprofit umbrella, WHIG, myself, and Fighting Crime work as partners to help facilitate
That's right.
all of this.
That's
You
right.
know, that doesn't mean that that's the extent of it. If there's other people that want to get involved, if they're, you know, whatever. I mean,
Sure.
we're doing this.
Sure.
to-
You know, it's not about us. This is
Right.
about solving crimes. It's just totally about solving crimes. So, also, one thing I wanted to mention was the show airs on Friday night, live on Thursday morning, 8 to 9, and then Friday night, 7 o'clock, and Tuesday night at, is it Tuesday,
10.
Wednesday?
What are you asking me for?
Because I didn't make the
10.
schedule.
Yeah.
10
it's-
o'clock.
Yes,
10
you're right.
o'clock on Tuesday night or Wednesday
Yeah,
night?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
And
Tuesday night, 10 o'clock.
it streams live on those times.
And I
mean,
hear a lot of people
WHIG streams
watching.
live all, 24 hours a day.
Yes,
You can watch it at those times on the internet, WHIGTV.com.
that's right.
And we put on YouTube eventually.
Yes,
for
we
people
do.
to watch.
Yes.
And, okay, so
Plenty of ways to watch and hopefully people to call in tips.
what when we come back from the break, we're gonna go to commercial here in a minute. I'm learning these things. And then Fred's going to talk about the weather.
That's right.
And then when we come back from the weather, we're going to go straight to a video segment from the press conference from last week. Now,
Yeah,
folks,
now, I want people to know that the U.S. Attorney is working, and our local
Right.
law enforcement, Edgecombe, Nash, Rocky Mount, we're all
Right.
there in attendance. But they are working on cases, folks.
Sure.
And the U.S. Attorney, when he comes down, when the U.S. Attorney gets involved,
Right.
it's serious business, isn't it?
And you've heard this news. You've heard this news on TV, radio. You read it in your local newspaper or whatever. But I want you to watch this segment of this press conference, because what we did was we carved out the moment where the U.S. Attorney talks about the 36 cases that they've prosecuted together, federal prosecutors and local law enforcement and state involved as well. To these 36 cases that are happened right here in this area are some of them should be eye-opening for folks. And in those 36 cases, we're talking about 4 documented gang members from the Bloods and the Crips. We're talking about a guy holding his mother hostage. We're talking about
It's pretty bad.
a lot of guns and drugs, right? I mean, that's what Keystone
That's
always...
right here in our area, folks.
Right, gangs, guns, and drugs. So I mean, I want folks to hear it from the U.S. Attorney. He's as he's talking, he's flanked by, he's got Sheriff Atkinson on one side, Keystone right behind him. He's got Rocky Mount Police Chief George Robinson on the other side of him,
Right.
and then a whole entire, I think I called it a phalanx in the newspaper, just a whole entire group of law enforcement that have been working on these cases.
That's right.
And how it's relative to the show, I always got to bring it back to how it's relative to the show is, while none of these cases are particularly murder cases, they very well could have been.
That's
and
right.
also, these firearms cases, when they raid a drug house and they seize 3 or 4 AK-47s or whatever they're getting, those guns could very well have been and probably were involved in murders.
Right.
So this work is really important, and I think
That's
that I think it was good for them to come and let people know.
Absolutely.
That.
How else would we know exactly what they're doing? And it makes us feel good to know that they are doing things.
Right.
So we'll be right back to watch the interesting press conference
Thanks,
from
folks.
Robert Higdon.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
In the market for new or used guns, look no further than Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun. Whether you want to buy, sell, or trade, we got you covered. While you're here, check out our large selection of jewelry. We offer gold, silver, diamond, and beautiful estate jewelry. Looking for electronics? We have almost anything you can think of. We always carry new and used guns, so come here first and shop with a local business you can trust. Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun, serving you for over 25 years. 443-1668, 2552 Sunset Avenue, Rocky Mount.
Today I want to highlight 36 defendants that we have charged in recent months as part of that ongoing and collaborative work. You'll see their names on a chart behind me, and we can provide those too. We've charged most of them in the last year, and they are examples of the dozens of individuals we have targeted in this area since we began the Take Back North Carolina initiative. So for example, we have opened a drug operation called Operation Bobcat. In that investigation, officers of the Wilson Police Department have targeted a group of individuals responsible for the distribution of cocaine and crack cocaine. They have utilized a range of law enforcement techniques to gain an understanding of the operations of the organization, and they have seized thousands of dollars in drug proceeds, numerous firearms used to protect and facilitate the operations of the organization, and we have charged at least 3 of the leading individuals, Jerry Melton, Laquan Allen, and Demetrius Allen, as part of that drug conspiracy. Melton and Laquan Allen are awaiting trial in the United States District Court. Demetrius Allen has pled guilty and is awaiting sentencing. Each faces between 10 years and life in prison upon their conviction. The investigation also revealed that Teresa Parker was dealing in crack cocaine provided to her by Jerry Melton. She now faces up to 10 years in federal prison, and her case awaits trial in federal court. Costa Pender and Eric High have been charged with conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute crack cocaine and powder cocaine, and they face between 5 years and 40 years in federal prison as part of Operation Bobcat. Both have pled guilty and are awaiting sentencing. Operation Bobcat also focused on the illegal drug activities of Demetrius Evan Ward Jr. The Wilson Police Department was able to make a series of undercover drug purchases from Ward involving crack cocaine, powder cocaine, and methamphetamine. Officers seized thousands in drug proceeds from Ward as well as weapons which he used to protect his business. He has pled guilty in federal court and faces up to life in prison and is currently awaiting sentencing. That investigation also pointed the officers of the Wilson Police Department and the Wilson County Sheriff's Office to Freddie Dean, who was trafficking in fentanyl, marijuana, and methamphetamine. Officers have purchased these illegal drugs from Dean. They have seized cash, weapons, and ammunition from him. This case is now pending in federal court. In Operation High Stakes, the DEA, SBI, and the Wilson County Sheriff's Office have identified a group of individuals trafficking in kilogram quantities of cocaine. And in that investigation, they have seized at least 1 kilogram, that's a brick of cocaine weighing about 2.2 pounds, from a traffic stop, some $40,000 in drug proceeds, numerous firearms used to protect the work of the organization, and we have charged 3 individuals, Shermarquette Whitaker, Mark Dean, and Jacoby Harvey, in federal court. They await arraignment at this time. The Nash County Sheriff's Office, ATF, and the Wilson Police Department have focused their investigative efforts, among others, on the armed drug trafficking activities of Vanderbilt Johnson. Following a series of drug purchases by a confidential informant and the seizure of weapons Johnson used to protect his drug operations, he was indicted on a range of drug charges which carry penalties of up to 40 years in federal prison, and he too is awaiting trial in U.S. District Court. The North Carolina SBI, the Wilson County Sheriff's Office, and the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Office have worked together to target the drug trafficking activities of Kerry Kersey. Kersey, who was on state probation, is charged in federal court with conspiracy to distribute and possession with the intent to distribute methamphetamine after her home was searched and illegal drugs and drug paraphernalia were found. Excuse me, it is warm in here. Gerard Fenner faces up to 20 years in federal prison after officers of the Rocky Mount Police Department and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms investigation revealed that he was trafficking in heroin, marijuana, and methylene dioxymethamphetamine, and that he used weapons to protect and advance his illegal drug business. His case is now pending in federal court. Earlier this year, Rocky Mount police officers encountered Khalid Caron Ocean Avent. He led them on a high-speed chase in an effort to avoid officers. He drove through residential areas, and he eventually hit a parked car. Ultimately, he was stopped and found to be in possession of a firearm. Because he is a convicted felon, he is prohibited from possessing that firearm. His case now awaits arraignment in federal court. As a result of an investigation by the Nash County Sheriff's Office, James Montez Woodley now faces up to 20 years in federal prison. He is charged with the distribution of heroin and doing so while on federal supervised release on a previous federal firearms conviction. Devious Preston Anthony has pled guilty to felon in possession of a firearm following his theft of a firearm from a pawn shop in Rocky Mount. He faces up to 10 years in federal prison. His sentence will be based in part on a criminal history that dates back to at least 2007 and involves property crimes, burglary, assault on government officials, and an earlier instance of stealing firearms. Jasmine Lamons Avent was indicted a little over a month ago. He is from Rocky Mount, but came over to Raleigh one night. Officers were called to the New Bern Avenue area not far from the federal courthouse to investigate a burglary, and they encountered Mr. Avent in the possession of firearms. Avent had outstanding warrants for his arrest. Officers also determined that he had been previously convicted of a felony in federal court here in the Eastern District back in 2011 that was possession of a stolen firearm, for which he had already served about 4 years. His current case is awaiting arraignment in federal court here in the Eastern District. Elijah Devin Caudle was stopped along Interstate 95 by officers of the Nash County Sheriff's Office and was driving nearly 20 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. After being stopped, Caudle jumped out of the car and fled on foot. He later surrendered to Nash County authorities and he's been charged as a felon in possession because a .40 caliber semi-automatic pistol was found in that car. Caudle has a long criminal history, which includes assault with a deadly weapon, drug charges, and at least one other instance of being a felon in possession of a firearm. He pled guilty and will be sentenced on September the 11th. On June 18 of this year, Joshua DeLoach of Rocky Mount received a sentence of 36 months in federal prison following his theft of a firearm from other members of his family. DeLoach has prior convictions dating back to 2005, which include drug offenses, breaking and entering, larceny, driving while impaired, carrying a concealed weapon, assault on a female, cyber stalking, and criminal contempt. On May 22 of this year, Brian Lee Dunlow received 262 months, or nearly 22 years in federal prison, as a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. Officers of the Nash County Sheriff's Office responded to a shots fired call in the Spring Hope area. Dunlow came home and found his girlfriend moving out of the house they shared with the assistance of 4 men from her church. Dunlow became upset, pulled a gun, and pointed at the face of one of the men helping her move. Dunlow fired a shot at close range, but fortunately did not hit anyone. The intended victim, a former corrections officer who was licensed to carry a firearm, drew his own gun and returned fire, wounding Dunlow. Several weeks later, officers of the Roanoke Rapids Police Department responded to a call from the home of Dunlow's mother, where Dunlow was recovering from the injuries he had sustained earlier. Officers learned that Dunlow had stolen a firearm from his mother's bedroom and held his mother and his wife hostage for approximately 4 hours. He threatened his wife and struck her in the face with a cane. He also injured his mother. Due to an extensive criminal history, the federal court determined Dunlow was an armed career criminal, thereby subject to enhanced sentencing under federal law and the federal sentencing guidelines. In early November, Irvin Fields will be sentenced for his role in the armed robbery of the West Mount Food Mart in Rocky Mount back in May of 2016. Through their investigation, the Nash County Sheriff's Office and the North Carolina Highway Patrol determined that Fields robbed the store clerk using a silver revolver, and while threatening him that if he did anything stupid, to quote him, he would, quote, pop him. At sentencing, he faces up to 20 years in federal prison. Darius Lamarck Crazy Face Richardson is currently facing federal firearms charges following a gang-related shooting incident in Rocky Mount in July of last year. Richardson is prohibited from possession of a firearm because he sustained at least 3 prior felony convictions. In October, David Viverette will be sentenced in federal court in New Bern for his role in the robbery of the First Carolina State Bank here in Nash County. Mr. Viverette faces up to 20 years in federal prison and has a 10-year criminal history, which will be on display for the court that day, which includes larceny, breaking and entering, property crimes, numerous convictions for the exploitation of the elderly and elder fraud, resisting police officers, and escape from a local jail. Last December, 3 individuals robbed the Royal Echo Marketing Company in Raleigh, a company that sells CBD, hemp, and vaping products. The business was robbed at gunpoint, and the manager of the store was pistol whipped. The investigation led the Raleigh Police Department back to Rocky Mount and other locations, and ultimately 3 individuals, Dexter Jamal Williams, Bashar Haram Harub, and Arafat Atef Alzer, with the robbery and with federal firearms charges. Mr. Williams was a resident of Rocky Mount. He and Harub will be arraigned later this year, while Mr. Alzer has pled guilty and is presently awaiting sentencing. Anthony Gerondell Williams has received 30 months in federal prison following his conviction for possessing a firearm after sustaining a felony criminal conviction. Kendrick Taiwan Taylor has received 180 months in federal prison after selling illegal drugs, in this case crack cocaine, to a confidential informant working with the Wilson County Sheriff's Office. A search of his house following those purchases turned up cocaine, crack cocaine, marijuana, drug paraphernalia, firearms, including 2 assault rifles with high-capacity magazines and large amounts of cash. You can see the fruits of that search in the picture that's behind these gentlemen. We'll make sure you get a look at that. And this picture is representative of the types of things these investigative agencies are routinely finding during their investigations, and which we are using in federal court to convict these offenders. Shortly before we announced the beginning of the Take Back North Carolina initiative, Wilson Police Department officers responded to a gunshot report on Lane Street in Wilson. There they found an individual lying in the roadway next to a parked car. He was suffering from a gunshot wound to his leg. The investigation revealed, among other things, that Ramon Eric Best, who gave various explanations about the shooting involving the victim lying in the street, was in the possession of or had control over firearms at the scene of the shooting. Mr. Best has pled guilty now to being a felon in possession of a firearm, and he will be sentenced in early 2021. He faces up to 10 years in federal prison. Ahmad DeQuayne Barnes was sentenced to 48 months in federal prison as a convicted felon in possession of a firearm following his February 2019 arrest when Wilson Police Department officers responded to his shots fired call. Matthew Darnell Pittman has received 132 months in federal prison for his involvement in the trafficking of heroin, cocaine, and crack cocaine, and he also possessed guns as part of his drug crime. And finally, and I'm sure you're glad that I can say that word, John David Jones received 120 months in federal prison following a traffic stop in Wilson where he was illegally towing a trailer. And I've saved this case for last because to me, this is the most important. During the stop, Jones shot at a North Carolina Highway Patrol trooper several times, and several rounds went through the windshield, striking the trooper in the face and neck. The trooper amazingly returned fire and pursued Mr. Jones. He fled, but he ultimately surrendered. Fortunately, the trooper has recovered very well and is back on duty serving the people of this state. And we were honored to sit with him and his wife and fellow troopers when that sentence was handed down just a few weeks ago. And Mr. Jones can now spend the next 10 years in federal prison considering the crime that he committed. And I'll just tell you, that is the most time that we could get for the charge that we could bring.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
In the market for new or used guns, look no further than Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun. Whether you want to buy, sell, or trade, we got you covered. While you're here, check out our large selection of jewelry. We offer gold, silver, diamond, and beautiful estate jewelry. Looking for electronics? We have almost anything you can think of. We always carry new and used guns, so come here first and shop with a local business you can trust. Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun, serving you for over 25 years. 443-1668, 2552 Sunset Avenue, Rocky Mount.